Like, I was expecting sentient robots, like, roaming the street, serving me ads as they mine my personal data and scan my brain. Maybe, like, some of the robots could fight each other. That would at least be entertaining. It's 2025, I forgot to move this bread out of the way, and the world is on fire. It's on fire, okay, only part of the world is on fire, but the parts that aren't on fire are mostly covered in, like, a smoky haze, so just don't go outside and you'll be fine. With everything going on in the world today, including the sun messing up my lighting, writing a novel seems like kind of a strange thing to do. Publishing is becoming an oversaturated mess, AI is on track to potentially replace human authors, and those damn youngsters are spending all their waking hours on the TikToks and the Instagrams and whatnot until their brains rot into a moldy pile of mush. And piles of mush lack the fundamental capacity to appreciate literary excellence. All of this is creating some strong headwinds against the authorial, writerly world, and leading some people to question whether it's still worth writing a novel. I'm here to tell you that in spite of all this, writing a novel is still a very worthwhile endeavor, and for some very good reasons that I want to discuss today. So let's talk about why it's still worth it to write a novel in 2025, even with everything that's going on. In fact, it might be a better time than ever. I'm gonna move this bread out of frame. All right, the first good reason to still write a novel is that writing a novel is an exercise in storytelling, and storytelling is a skill that's on the brink of disappearing. You would think that the best way to convince somebody of something would be to give them facts and figures, bar charts and scatter plots, logic and data. But nothing could be further from the truth. Narrative matters far more than data when it comes to how people make decisions. When logic and numbers seem like they factor into a decision, it's often just because we've built a narrative around that data to explain that data. In spite of this, we as a society are shifting away from telling stories and instead focusing more on data. Collecting and understanding data is incredibly important, don't get me wrong, but when it comes to communication between people, story trumps data every single time. There is a glut right now of data and people collecting and looking at that data. What we lack, though, are people who can communicate about that data in an effective way. And when I say data, I don't just mean like numeric stuff that you can go out and count, like the number of widgets sold or how many miles per gallon a car is getting or whatever. I also mean understanding relationships and how people interact and the tendencies that people have. Experiences are a form of data, and telling stories and building narrative around the experiences that you or other people are having is also part of this. Being able to tell a story is a skill. Writing a novel will help you build that skill. Storytelling is about understanding the events of the story you're telling, obviously, but also understanding the person reading it. Engaging in the writing craft will increase your understanding in both areas. It will make you better able to understand the narrative and the story around data and the events happening in the world, and it will also help you understand other people and how to better communicate with them. We are running out of people who have the ability to tell a story. Not necessarily a novel-length epic, but people who can convey an idea through an email or explain some piece of data. The people who can do this will make it much further in the world. I think there's a somewhat commonly held belief that writing a novel means having other people read it. And while that's a part of the process for sure, what you, the writer, get out of that process in terms of understanding yourself and the world is almost more important. There's a lot of talk about people not reading anymore or people not being able to read anymore and the publishing industry going to hell or whatever. There's a lot of focus on not writing a novel because less and less people seem interested in reading them, but that ignores one very important point. We focus a lot on the product of our work. We often measure a novel by its sales numbers or its reviews or whatever else, but that's only one part of it. The work works on you more than you work on the work. You grow as a person through the process of writing. Yes, you produce writing, but that's just a byproduct. Writing a novel so that other people will read it is just one facet. It's just one benefit of the process of writing a novel. Writing is very difficult at times. The word soul crushing can often be used without an ounce of hyperbole when describing the process of working through a longer project, or a shorter project, or literally just any sort of writing at all. Doesn't matter how long it is. The important thing to remember is that enduring the difficulty and the stress associated with writing makes you able to endure more difficulty and stress. A lot of people, when they get stressed, they do things to reduce that stress. They don't focus on building up their own resilience to that stress. A lot of people seek increased comfort. They want the bad feelings to go away. They want the stressor to become less stressful. And that's fine. It's understandable. There are times where that's appropriate. But you also have to understand that you can improve your own ability to handle stress. You can make yourself more resilient to the stress that you encounter in the world. Now, writing doesn't automatically seem like something that would do that. Toughening yourself up while writing a novel just doesn't seem to jive. But the skills that you learn when writing, focusing on a task, working through dreary toil when you don't feel like it, seeing a long-term project through the end, ignoring other stresses or distractions in your life, those are all skills that benefit you in other areas. Now, to be fair, there's a lot of different things that you can do to learn those sorts of skills. There's all kinds of different projects you can apply yourself to build your own personal resilience. Novel writing is just one of them. It's a good fit if it happens to be something that you enjoy, but it's also an activity that doesn't require a ton of equipment or expense to do, so it works in that sense as well. I'm not saying that it's the only way to build up that resilience. I'm just saying that writing a novel is one way to do it, and a way that is fairly accessible to most people. Let's end today by talking about the rise of machines and the coming AI apocalypse that will doom us all, shall we? Seems like a nice cheery note to end on. Is anyone else disappointed that these AIs are basically just big computers sitting in an air-conditioned warehouse? Like, I was expecting sentient robots like roaming the street serving me ads as they mine my personal data and scan my brain for information that will help them sell things to me. Like, if we're all getting replaced, if the world is going to end, let's at least have robots out walking around in the street. Maybe like some of the robots could fight each other. That would at least be entertaining. Anyway, the publishing market, especially the self-publishing market, is saturated. Getting through to anyone on the internet is becoming an ever increasingly void shouting affair. And there's the threat of non-human written books looming on the horizon. In spite of all of this, I'm going to present a bit of a hot take here, but I firmly believe that it has never actually been easier to find and reach an audience. That the platforms and tools available today make it easier to get your stories out into the world than ever before. Of course, this also means that it makes it easier for everybody else to do the same thing, but I don't think we can ignore the positive impact that a lot of these platforms have had on the process of writing. Yes, all of this stuff has made the process more complicated, but the upside for people who figure out that complexity has never been higher. Most self-published books sell less than a few hundred copies, but most of them are on a platform where they have the potential to sell way more. And that's ignoring the fact that most of these books sell way more copies than they would have like 30 years ago, before these platforms and the ability to put a self-published work on the internet for sale was even a possibility. We are living in a time where reaching your readership is easier than it ever has been. Putting out a blog post or a video or whatever and having 1 million people find it is rare, but it's something that does happen, and it's not something that happened even like 20, 25 years ago, at least not as often. Being a writer, finding an audience is still a very hard thing to do, don't get me wrong. But the platforms and the internet in general make it something that can be achieved, and I think we've kind of lost sight of that a little bit. In the past, you would have needed the marketing clout of a big publisher to do what most people can do by posting free content today. Yes, it's hard to do. Yes, everything is overcrowded. Yes, there's all kinds of issues with it, but it still creates a lot of opportunities that I think we've kind of lost sight of. I think at the end of the day, if you really want other people to read your work, then we are living in something of a golden age. Compared to the opportunities that writers had 30, 40, 50 years ago, things are so much easier now in a lot of ways. Yes, there's tons of garbage and there's tons of crappy books flooding marketplaces out there, and there's probably going to be lots more of them with AI coming on the horizon and whatever. But really, all that's doing is creating a hunger for good writing. The best works are still going to rise to the top. I fundamentally believe that. If the world ends up drowning in AI generated low effort slop, that's just going to allow the best writers to rise to the surface. I won't go as far as to say that it's easier to succeed as a writer today, because I don't think it is. I think there's a lot of complexity there. But I don't know if it's necessarily gotten any harder than it was in the past. And that's something that I think we've lost sight of a little bit. Anyway, speaking of losing sight of things, you're going to lose sight of me shortly because this video is coming to an end. So there you have it. I hope you enjoyed this video and found some of the advice at least a little bit encouraging. I believe in you. I think you should still be writing a novel in spite of all the stuff we talked about today. Anyway, if you want to see more stuff like this, you can check out all my other writing advice related videos and subscribe to my channel. As always, thanks for watching, and I will see you next time.